This tutorial is the second tutorial in helping you prepare for your Bear Innovation oral pitch. This particular tutorial is geared specifically toward preparing the content for your main points of your pitch, as well as the corresponding slide deck or PowerPoint. The oral presentation for Bear Innovation is strictly 8 minutes long, so you'll need to prepare your oral presentation to keep within that time frame, because during the competition you will be cut off at the end of 8 minutes, so it's going to take a little bit of practice. Typically, the rule of thumb for the slide deck that supports that oral presentation is about 8 to 10 slides, or roughly 1 slide per minute. In this tutorial, we're going to go through each of the slides and the content for those slides individually. And so overall, here is what your slide deck should look like. The first slide should deal with your company purpose, and I'll use the word company loosely. It could be an initiative, it can be a campaign, it could be a nonprofit, it could be a for-business entity. Whatever your project is, you want to state clearly your purpose. Second slide deals with the problem that you're trying to solve. A lot of times students make the mistake of not identifying what it is that the market particularly needs. What's the problem that they're facing? What's the need that needs to be met? Or what's the pain point that needs to be resolved? Third slide should entail your innovative solution. And when I say innovative, what I really mean is just significantly better or different than what currently exists. The next slide is why now? We'll go into that on the slide deck, as well as the market size, your competition, your product in specifics, your business model, the team, and the financials. So we'll go into detail on each of those slides individually to help you prepare those. So as I go through this tutorial, I'll be describing the basic content that needs to go on each slide. However, I want to remind you from the earlier tutorial that it's a good idea to enhance your content, this basic content, with a hook, a story, or some other interesting highlights that are designed to capture the judge's interest as you're presenting your proposal. The first slide specifically deals with your company purpose, and that content should be to define the company or your business in a single declarative sentence. Oftentimes, students jump right into their pitch before they state what their company or entity does, and this provides some confusion for the judges. They're not quite really sure what you're doing as you jump into the full pitch. The second thing that trips students up is that quite often they don't describe the problem that they're trying to solve up front. So this slide in your PowerPoint presentation should clearly describe the need that your potential customers have, or the pain that you're trying to resolve or alleviate. You also want to describe on this slide how the customer currently addresses this need or alleviates the pain. So what are they doing now to solve this problem? Now's the fun part of your oral pitch. You want to describe the great idea, your solution that you've been working on. You want to explain to the judges how your solution will make customers' life better, and what you've done so far to help develop your idea and to test it out to see whether or not customers are willing to use it. You might not have gotten that far in your project, so if you haven't, you would describe in this section what it is that you intend to do to test out your idea. After you talk about the problem and your solution to that problem, you want to briefly talk about what's happening in the industry and what trends make your solution attractive now. The next part of your oral pitch requires a little bit of research on your part, and it's about learning about the market. And there's three key points that you want to talk about when you're describing your product or service in relationship to the market. The first is, who are your target customers? What is the demographics that you're targeting? What are their needs? What are their interests? All of those things combined contribute to what we call a customer persona. The second point that you want to describe about the market is how you intend to reach your target audience. Are you going to reach them through social media? Does your business idea require a storefront? Are you going to have a website? How is it that you're going to attract customers to want to engage with or buy your product or service? And the third point that you want to make when talking about the market is to be able to describe for the judges the total market size. And there's two ways to do this. The first way is to do some research and determine how big the market is and estimate how much of that market you think your product or service can capture. And we call that method the top-down method. The second way to describe your portion of the market is to calculate out what you think your business will do in terms of numbers and dollars. And the way that you would do that would be first to estimate a unit price and then multiply that price by the estimated number of units you think you could sell. And you pick a time frame, maybe it's within a day or within a week. And then correspondingly, you would multiply that then by the number of the weeks in the year or the number of days in the year to come up with the amount of money and the number of units that you could, of your product or your service that you would sell in a particular year. So that also would describe for the judges how much you could expect in revenue. This part of the oral pitch gets a little bit tricky, and I'm happy to help anybody that has any questions. After you've described the market size and how much of that market you think you can capture, you want to describe your competitive position in relationship to the other competitors that are out there. So the two key points that you want to make in this section of the presentation are to describe why your product or service is significantly better than what currently exists or better than the alternatives. So what you're doing in this section is really describing your competitive advantage. And through that description, you want to provide some examples of the competitors that are in your space. You really want to be clear in this section and describe why you think your product or service is different and better than what is currently available out there. And that's really the crux of what you're trying to convince the judges of. So far in the oral pitch, you've given the judges an overview of your product or service, the problem that it's trying to solve, where you fit in the marketplace and your competitors. Now you're going to take a deep dive, but very briefly describe the features and functionality of the product or service. And in this section is where you would show a prototype, some sort of example or a physical representation of what actually your product or service is, so that the judges have a clear idea of what it is and what it does, and quite often what it looks like. Every entity, whether you're a for-profit or nonprofit, requires a business model, and it simply describes how your entity will make money. For any entity to be viable, the money coming in must exceed the money going out. So the money coming in is called revenue or sales, and the money going out is called costs. Both of these require estimates for your business model and for this presentation. The money coming in, you estimate based on the unit of sales and the amount of sales, the amount of units you think you can sell, whether it's service or product. And your costs are estimated based on the key activities that your business performs. So to be able to think about that, you have to at least think about what are the key activities that are necessary, and put some estimates to that. And again, if you need some help when you get to that section, I'm happy to help you one-on-one. Introducing yourselves by first and last names is a critical part of your oral pitch. Often, teams make a strategic decision about where to place the introduction. It may come right after the hook, or it may come right after the description of the project, but typically it comes in the beginning of the oral pitch. So from here, once you've created your pitch, you can decide where do you want to insert your introduction, and be sure to introduce yourself, your teammates if you have any, and any advisor that you've worked with. We're coming up to the last part of the oral pitch. Some teams will have financial information based on their estimates that they'd like to show. This is not necessary for this particular competition, but if you have them and you'd like to show them, this is the spot where you would do that. From there, all participants should end with a close, enabling the judges to know that your presentation is coming to a conclusion. It could be simply, thank you for listening, we're happy to answer any questions, or some other type of close, or some other type of verbal prompt that indicates to the judges or the audience that you are concluding your oral presentation. Once you've concluded your oral presentation in 8 minutes, because you will be stopped if it goes beyond 8 minutes, the floor will be opened up for the judges to ask you questions. You're welcome to answer any questions that they have, and they can ask you about anything on any part of your presentation. That will last for 5 minutes, and once that concludes, the judges will thank you for your time, and they will go on to make their decision. So thank you for participating in 2020 Bear Innovation Remote, and good luck to everyone.